The late Cenozoic age began 33.9 million years ago. The effect this had on the American mastodon over time eventually led to extinction. The woolly mammoth had a larger stature and thicker fur to survive in the harsh climate of the Ice Age. As glaciers that had formed due to Ice Age melted, large sinkholes would fill with the excess water. In the Miocene and Pliocene time periods of the Cenozoic era, the mastodons would go to these water basins to get water, but due to the continuous erosion from the glaciers melting over the course of millions of years, the edge would become slippery and they would fall in. Today in Hot Springs, South Dakota, what was once filled with excess glacier runoff is now one of the largest active dig sites in the world. It helps archaeologists to understand the effects of the Ice Age on the American mastodon and the woolly mammoth in their extinction. During the Cenozoic era, dramatic changes in climate occurred. As temperature decreased during the ice ages, new species that were adapted to life in cooler climates appeared. We interviewed Lynette Reiner to expand on this topic. She is the Director of Science and Specialist in Ice Age History at the McKinley Museum.
The Pliocene Quaternary Glaciation is a series of many glacial cycles, possibly 18, during the last 2.5 million years. There is especially strong evidence for 8 glacial advances within the last 420,000 years as recorded in the Antarctic Ice Core record. Researchers are not completely positive of any specific event that caused the Ice Age. It was most likely the result of a complicated dynamic interaction between such things as solar output, distance of the Earth from the Sun, position and height of the continents, ocean circulation, and the composition of the atmosphere. During the Oligocene, ice starts to form on Antarctica as the circumantarctic current forms. This leads to albedo changes causing more cooling. Albedo refers to the total reflectance of sunlight from the Earth.
Mammals became the dominant life form and underwent many changes.
There is no evolution from mastodons to mammoths. They are separate species of mammals that have a few common ancestors. Woolly mammoths started to diverge from other mammoth species about 800,000 years ago. They went extinct in most places around 10,000 years ago, except for isolated populations on islands that went extinct 4,000 years ago. First, there were 2 to 3 early ancestors that evolved into the woolly mammoth species. M. africanavus. The African mammoth was the first known mammoth species that lived in northern Africa about 3 to 4 million years ago. These mammoths migrated further north into Eurasia, and that is when Mammothus meridionalis became the ancestral mammoth that first roamed Europe about 2.6 million years ago. After those mammoths, about 700,000 years ago, came the steppe mammoth or M. troghantheri. Eventually that evolved into the woolly mammoth, which become characterized into 2 subcategories based on where in the world these mammoths lived. One category of mammoths lived and stayed in the high Arctic. Other woolly mammoths lived in Europe and southern Siberia. Some mammoths even migrated into the Americas.
A modern evolution derived from the Cenozoic age is the elephant, which came from the mammoth. However, the woolly mammoth did not evolve from mastodons. They shared a few common ancestors, but the woolly mammoths were able to better survive the Ice Age because they had adapted more. The thicker coat of the mammoth allowed the mammoth to stay warm in the cold temperatures. The average temperature at the end of the Cenozoic age was 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit.
They were sensitive to the long winters when it was harder to find food. This is evidenced by their tusk growth rings, which slowed in the winter. One study of mammoth remains in North America found that the most common time for them to die was in the winter or spring when food was hardest to come by. As the climate warmed up, trees and wetland plants took over and replaced the mammoth's grassland habitats. When the climate got wetter and the ice began to melt, it led to the formation of lakes, rivers, and marshes. The ecosystem changed and the biomass of the vegetation reduced and would not have been able to sustain the herds of mammoths. They were not able to adapt quickly enough when the landscape dramatically transformed and their food became scarce. This led to their extinction.
The sinkhole had been filled with water from glaciers for millions of years prior. This would have been similar to a bog.
Bogs are a type of freshwater wetland. Bog soil is made up largely of decaying plant matter. It is oxygen poor and nutrient poor, making biodiversity much lower than in other wetland ecosystems. Few plants can survive in such an acidic, waterlogged soil. Carnivorous plants have adapted to ambrotrophic environments by not absorbing nutrients from the surrounding water, but from insect prey. These carnivorous plants, such as sundews and pitcher plants, trap insects and dissolve them for nutrients. Bogs that are fed by lake basins and other water sources have even more biodiversity. Plants that grow in these bogs include cranberries, blueberries, and huckleberries. Insects thrive in muddy bogs and consume plants, fungi, and pollen. All bogs take hundreds or thousands of years to develop. A bog is formed when a lake slowly fills with plant debris. Sphagnum moss, as well as other plants, grow out from the lake's edge. The vegetation eventually covers the lake's entire surface. Bog plants and insects support a wide variety of other organisms. Amphibians, such as frogs, salamanders, and newts, thrive in insect-rich bogs that can attract larger animals as well. Bogs. However, bogs are amazing for preserving remains of animals. In the absence of ice, nature has other ways to preserve body tissue. An extremely important factor in preventing decomposition is separation from oxygen. From partial footprints to intact fossilized skeletons, many Ice Age animals, including American mastodons and woolly mammoths, have been unearthed in bogs.
This shows the Arctic version and the temperately stable versions on the mastodon and the mammoth due to the alteration in physical appearance in coat, stature, and even different teeth shapes to compensate for differentiating diets produced from the Ice Age.
Being that the first mammoth came from Africa, they had to evolve to fit the relatively colder climates of Eurasia regardless of it being the Ice Age. Smaller ears are an adaptation for the woolly mammoth because the smaller the ears, the closer they were to the woolly mammoth's head, thus providing warmth for the animals in the harsh cold. Another adaptation that was due to their climate was their long tusk. A woolly mammoth tusk was about 15 feet long and was used for fighting and digging in the deep snow of the Ice Age. They also evolved to meet certain dietary needs, specifically their jaws and teeth. The mammoth jaw became progressively smaller and higher.
Hot Springs, South Dakota dig site is open to the public for tours while archaeologists actively are uncovering millions of years worth of history. They have found 61 mammoths so far and have only scratched the surface of what the sinkhole may contain. Scientists believe from the size of the area that fossils should appear as they dig down for more than 50 feet. This could take 45 more years to uncover all of the fossils located in the sinkhole completely. There are many more species also discovered in the site, but the findings of mammoths and mastodons are so significant because they show millions of years of adaptations and evolution. While this is not the sole reason for the extinction of mammoths and mastodons, it helps to understand why mastodons were not fit to survive in the climate of the Ice Age, but woolly mammoths were due to their adaptations, and how mammoths evolved into elephants.